What's up everyone, it's Teja here and welcome to another video tutorial. This video is going to be a Java programming video tutorial, and in this video I'll be teaching you about looping in Java. Well, what is looping? A loop can be used to execute a group of statements or even a single statement multiple times according to the need of the programmer, that is us. So by using a loop you can execute a group of statements, or it can be even a single statement more than once. So it may be 2 times, it may be 3 times, whatever. So it all depends on the need of the programmer. So let's get started. And before getting started, there are 3 types of loops in Java. The first type of loop is for loop. The second type of loop is while loop, and the third type of loop is do while loop. So firstly, let's go and let's see how this first type of loop, that is for loop, actually works like. So let me create a simple program to explain you the working of a for loop. So let me create a new class. I'm using BlueJ in this video as usual. So let me name this class as looping, and let me declare a variable named test as void. And inside this, firstly let me show you the syntax to to actually start a for loop. So the syntax to start a for loop is going to be for initializing. So the syntax to start a for loop in Java programming is going to be for, or for, and then an open and a closed braces, and in between these open and closed braces you got to type 3 parts of the code. The first part is actually initialization. In this part we actually initialize a variable. We can even declare the variable and initialize it at the same time in this part of the code. And after that you got to mention a semicolon, and after the semicolon starts the next part of the for loop, that is the condition for the for loop to execute or not. So here it's going to be the condition, and after that you got to mention another semicolon, and after this the next part of the for loop is going to be increment or a decrement statement. So it's going to be increment or decrement statement. So what is this increment or decrement statement? In this part of the for loop we should actually change the value of the variable which we used in the for loop, so that you will learn about that later in this video. But just remember that the third part is increment or decrement statement. That is, we got to change the value of the variable for every iteration of the for loop. So let's now go ahead and let me create a simple for loop. Let me type in a simple program to explain you the working of a for loop. So firstly let me type in for an open and a closed square brace, and in between these let me declare a variable I as integer data type, and let me initialize its value as 1. So I say for int I equal to 1, and after that I got to type in a semicolon, and after typing a semicolon here I got to give the condition for the for loop. I got to give the condition so that the compiler understands whether to run the for loop or not. So let me give the condition as I less than or equal to let's say 3, and the next part you got to actually specify an increment or a decrement statement. Let me here increase the value of y by 1 every time the for loop is executed. So I say I equal to I plus 1. So I can simply write this as I plus plus. It literally means the same. So now I have successfully started a for loop, and here are open brace and a closed square brace, and in between these open and closed square braces you got to type in the group of statements or even a single statement which you want to execute more than once in your program. So let me explain a little more about this for loop. Okay, firstly let me type in our output statement inside the for loop, and let's say the for loop is running. So I have typed in an output, a print statement, and I said the for loop is running. After the for loop, immediately after the for loop, let me type in another output statement, and let me say the for loop ended, and that's it. Okay, now what you have to note is that this second output statement which I have typed in doesn't come under this for loop because it is actually outside this closed square braces. So any statement which is after the closed square braces comes as different part of the program, and it is not included in the for loop. Only the statements or the group of statements which were present inside the open and closed square braces come under the for loop, and these are the statements which get executed more than once according to the condition we give in the for loop. So let me explain you a little more about how this works. So firstly, the control comes over to this initialization and declaration. So we declared integer I, and we initialized it as 1. So the value of I is going to be 1 initially, and after the control executes this initialization statement, it jumps on to the condition statement and it checks the condition. So firstly we have initialized the value of I as 1, so it checks 1 whether 1 is less than or equal to 3, and as you know, 1 less than or equal to 3 is a true statement. So since this is a true statement, it the control comes inside the for loop, and yes, it comes only if the condition is satisfied and the condition is true. And please remember that after executing the condition statement, it doesn't go to the increment statement. So keep that in mind. So once if the statement is true, the control comes into the for loop and it executes all the group of statements which were present or which were typed in between the open and closed square braces. And after it execute all the statements in that for loop, the control once again goes back to the increment statement this time. So the value of I is going to be I equal to I plus 1. So initially the value of I is 1, as we know, and after executing these group of this statement once, the control goes to the increment statement, and the value of I is now going to be 2. I equal to 1 plus 1, which means I equal to 2. So after executing this increment statement, the control once again jumps to the condition statement here, and once it jumps to the condition statement, it checks whether the condition is satisfied. Since 2 less than or equal to 3 is a true statement, and since the condition is satisfied, the control jumps and once again inside the for loop, and it executes this statement which is present inside the for loop. And this is going to be the second iteration. This is the first iteration, and this is going to be the second iteration. And once it executes this statement, it once again jumps to the increment statement, and the value of I is once again going to be incremented by 1, and the value of I is now going to be I equal to 2 plus 1, which means I equal to 3. After executing the increment statement, the control once again jumps into the condition statement. So it checks the condition, and since 3 is less than or equal to 3 is a true condition, since that condition is satisfied, as we know, the control is going to go inside the for loop once again, and this is going to be the third iteration. And after executing the this statement which is present in the inside the for loop for the third time, the control once again goes to the increment statement, and the value of I is now going to be I equal to 3 plus 1, which means I equal to 4. And after going to the increment statement, the condition gets executed, and since 4 less than or equal to 3 is a false statement, this control is going to skip the for loop, and it's going to run the it's going to execute the statement which is present immediately after the for loop. So this is going to come out of the for loop if the condition is not satisfied, if the condition is false. So the statement which is present immediately after the for loop is going to be executed if the condition fails. So this is actually how the for loop works. And in our program, in this example program, you can clearly see the number of iterations for this for loop is going to be 3. So here we go, 1, 2 and 3. So the number of iterations for this program is going to be 3, and the value of I is going to be incremented by 1 every time this for loop is executed. So keep that in mind. And yes, so one more thing you got to note down is that this initialization statement gets executed only once, that is for the first time when the for loop is executed. The rest of the times this initialization statement doesn't get executed. Only the condition statement and the increment or decrement statement gets executed, and this doesn't get executed all the times. It just gets executed only once, that is the first iteration of the for loop. So this is an important point you got to keep in mind. After the first iteration of the for loop, this initialization statement is no longer going to be executed. So keep that in mind. Well, now let's compile our program and let me show you the results. So here we go. This statement, the for loop is running, is printed thrice on the screen, and which are the 3 iterations. This is the first iteration, this is the second iteration, and this is the third iteration. So after the third iteration, the control goes out of the for loop, and the statement, the output statement which is present right after the for loop, that is the for loop ended, gets printed. So this is how a for loop works. So now let me try changing something. For example, let me initialize the value of I as 4. So as you know, 4 is not less than or equal to 3. So what happens is, firstly the control initializes the value of I as 4, and then it checks this condition statement, and 4 is less than or equal to 3 is a false statement, and since this is a false statement, the control directly goes out of the for loop without even executing the for loop even once. So this for loop is said to have 0 iterations since the condition fails for the first time itself. So let me compile this and let me show you the result. So here we go. We have only one statement, only one output statement which is not in the for loop. The output statement which we have specified right after the for loop, which means that the for loop is not iterated even once. So the second type of loop is while loop. Basically, for loop and while loop are the same except for the syntax. The for loop and while loop have different syntaxes, and also while loop is more useful when coming to string manipulation. Well, anyway, let me create a new class and let me explain you the functioning of a while loop, which is same as that of the for loop. But anyway, let me create a sample program. Let me name the program as while loop. And firstly, let me show you the syntax to start a while loop. The syntax to start a while loop is going to be while, W-H-I-L-E, while, open and a closed brace, and in between these open and closed not square braces, circular braces, you got to mention the condition. So it's going to be the condition, and after that, an open flower brace and then a closed flower brace, and you got to type in all these statements which are to be iterated in between these open and closed square braces, and any statement which comes after this closed square brace is not considered to be inside the while loop. So that's it. And yes, one more thing is, at the end of the while loop, inside the while loop, at the end, you got to actually specify an increment or a decrement statement. So unlike for loop, you should not, you cannot specify an increment or decrement statement inside this circular braces. Inside the circular braces, you only have to mention the condition. You cannot even declare a variable or initialize a variable as like that of the for loop. So before starting the for loop, you got to declare a variable or any data type. So this is going to be the syntax to start a while loop. Okay, now let me go ahead and let me start a simple while loop with the same output statements which are used in the for loop. So firstly, let me declare a variable I as integer data type, and let me initialize it with 1. And then let me start a while loop, and let me give the condition as I less than or equal to 3. And after that, let me give the statements, the output statements system dot out dot println, and let me give the same output statement which I have given earlier. And after this, I've got to give the the increment statement. So let me say I plus plus, which is going to increment the value of I by 1 every time this for loop is executed. So after the while loop, I'm going to give another output statement, and I'm going to say here the while loop ended. So these two are the output statements which I have given in the for loop program as well. So well, let me explain you the functioning of the while loop now. So firstly, the control goes and initializes the variable I. So the value of I is going to be initially 1. And after initializing this variable I, the control goes to the while loop and it checks the condition I less than or equal to 3. And since 1 is less than or equal to 3 is a correct statement, the control goes inside inside the while loop, and it executes these two statements, and this is going to be the first iteration. And after executing all the statements which were present inside the while loop, the control once again goes and checks the condition. So the control is going to go from this statement, and it's going to check, it's going to the condition statement. And since the value of I is incremented by 1 due to this I plus plus statement, the value of I is now going to be I equal to 1 plus 1. So which means the I value is going to be 2. And since 2 less than or equal to 3 is a true statement, the control once again goes inside the while loop and executes these two statements. So this is going to be the second iteration. And after executing these two statements, the control once again goes it goes and checks the condition once again. And yes, the value of I is now going to be incremented by 1, that is I equal to 2 plus 1, which means I equal to 3. And since 3 less than or equal to 3 is a true statement, the the control is going to go once again inside the while loop, just like this. And this is, as you know, going to be the third iteration. So after executing these two statements once again, due to this last Java statement, that is I plus plus, the value of I is going to be I equal to 3 plus 1, which means I equal to 4. And after executing these two statements, the value of I is going to be 4. And since this control goes to the condition once again, and it's going to be it's going to check the condition, and the value of I is now 4. So 4 is less than or equal to 3. It is a wrong statement. So since this is a false statement, the control is now going to go out of the loop and it's going to execute this output statement, that is the while loop ended. So this is how the while loop is going to function. Yes, it's same as that of the for loop. Now let me compile the program and let me show you the result. Yep, here we go. The results are same as that of the for loop. 3 times this statement, the while loop is running, is printed, and the 4th time the while loop ended, the output statement which says while loop ended is printed. So as you could see here, the number of iterations of this while loop is going to be 3. And the third type of loop in Java programming is do while loop. And yes, there is a difference in functioning of do while loop when compared to that of while loop or for loop. And yes, you're going to understand that difference after I show you a sample program. So I'm creating a new class and I'm going to show you another sample program to demonstrate the functioning of a do while loop. And here we go. So firstly, let me show you the syntax for a do while loop. The syntax for a do while loop is going to be, do, do, and then simply open flower brace, and here goes the statements which are to be executed. And at the end of these statements, you got to mention an increment or a decrement statement similar to that of the while loop. And after closing the code snippet, after closing the do loop, you got to mention another statement. You got to say while, 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 an open and closed square brace, and in between these open and closed circular brace, not square brace, sorry, it's circular brace, you have to mention the condition as that of the while loop. And one more thing you should not forget is that after this you got to mention a semicolon. That's included in the syntax of do while loop. So this is the syntax for a do while loop. Okay, so yeah, let me demonstrate this functioning of a do while loop by creating a simple do while loop. So let me initialize a variable I as integer and initialize it with 1. Okay, now let me start a do while loop. So I'm gonna type in do, and then I'll open flower brace, and then now I'm going to type in the same output statements which have been using throughout this video. It's going to be system.println, the do while loop is running. And after this, let me increment the value of I with 1 every time the do while loop is executed. And now let me close this statement. And once I have closed this, I'm gonna go to the next line and I'm gonna type in while, while, open and a closed square brace, and then a semicolon, and in between these open and closed circular brace, I'm gonna type in the condition. I'm gonna set the condition as I less than or equal to 3. And okay, after this do while loop, well, this is the do while loop, and after the do while loop, I'm gonna type in another output statement. And I'm going to say the do while loop ended. Yep, that's it. Okay, let me close this and let me explain you how it functions. So basically, the control is going to execute this statement once. It's going to declare the variable I as integer data type firstly, and then it's going to initialize the value of y as 1. So the value of I is going to be 1 initially. After that, it's going to come into the do while loop, and after it checks this statement, after it reads this statement, it understands that you started a do while loop. So it goes inside the do while loop and it executes these 2 statements over here. And yes, it's going to print this statement once the do while loop is running, and then it's going to increment the value of I with 1, which means I is now equal to I plus 1. So the value of I is going to be I equal to 1 plus 1, which means I equal to 2. And after executing this, the control doesn't actually go back to the starting of the loop. The control goes to this statement, to this while statement, and it's going to check the condition. Yes, you got it. right. In case of do while loop, the control actually executes the loop first and then it checks the condition. Unlike that of the while and the for loop, the control first checks the condition and then executes the loop. So in case of do while, the control is going to execute the loop at least once and then it's going to check the condition. So anyway, okay, it's going to check the condition and the value of I is going to be 2 as we know, and since 2 less than or equal to 3 is a true statement, yes, the control is going to go back inside this loop, and this is going to be the first iteration. And after executing this, the control once again comes to the statement, to this while statement. And yes, every time these two statements are iterated, we know that the value of I is being increased by 1. So the value of I is going to be 3 now, and 3 less than or equal to 3 is a true statement, and this is going to be the second iteration. Well, basically there are actually 3 iterations for this do while loop, but we are only getting 2 iterations, right? Well, remember the first time the do while loop is executed? Yes. The control, as I told you earlier, firstly it executes the loop at least once after reading this do, the do command. And yes, so this is going to be the first iteration actually, and this is going to be the second, and this is going to be the third. So that's how the control the do while loop actually works like. And yes, I'm repeating this statement once again. You have to remember that in case of a do while loop, the control actually executes the control actually executes the loop at least once, and only then it goes and checks the condition. But in case of the while loop and in case of the for loop, the control actually checks the condition first, and only if the condition is satisfied it executes the loop. So that is the major difference and keen difference between the while loop and that of the for loop, or sorry, that is the difference between the do while loop and that of the while or for loop. So let me compile this program. Forgot to mention a semicolon here. Let me compile this and let me show you. So the result is the same. The first 3 times this output statement which says the do while loop is running is printed, and the last time, that is the 4th time, the do while loop ended statement is printed. So this is the same result as that of the while and that of the for loop. So these are the 3 types of loops in Java, and that's all I wanted to teach you in this video. If you have any doubts regarding this video, you can feel free to comment below, or you can even email me at anonymoushacker156@gmail.com. Yep, the email ID will be provided in the description below. And if you want more of these Java programs, if you want to learn Java, then you can visit my blog at bluejay4icsc.wordpress.com. The link to my blog will be given in the description below. Also make sure that you visit my website at techraj156.com. And if you like this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up below. Hit the subscribe button for more videos. Like my Facebook page at facebook.com/techraj156. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/techraj156. Visit my website at techraj156.com. Thanks for watching. Cheers.